Okay, so today what we're going to be working on is a daily decision helper app. So something really simple, something that you can kind of make more complex if you dive in a little deeper, but we're going to keep it simple just so you can kind of get an idea of how AI works with building a lot of these apps and the process of that, and kind of getting a little bit underneath I would say the hood of it to look at the code, but not really going too in depth with understanding the code. So if you have coded before, this might be a little more simple for you to understand like the different components in it. If you haven't, it might be a bit more difficult. But we can kind of talk through any questions that you may have about specific things. So, just to introduce myself again, though that was a great introduction, my name is Shadeira Nesmith. I am from New Jersey. I am an educator, a tech mentor. I've been teaching for about 9 years plus now within the tech and education field. So, I started off teaching kids, so working with things like app development, web design, so working with kids as young as like 5 years old. And then throughout my career, I went into adult learning, so working with people transitioning into software development careers, so working with companies like Comcast, Amazon, and taking their employees to help them get jobs as software developers. As time has gone on and AI has been introduced, a lot of people have had questions around, the transition of being a software developer or engineer. But if you look on a lot of these company sites, those jobs are very much still available. But the difference is now just being more proficient with it and quicker in creating solutions, being able to debug faster. And that's where kind of AI comes in as that helper to help you get over those hurdles that may have taken someone who was in that software developer career years ago a little bit longer. So I've seen that transition, and that's kind of where I'm at, kind of teaching more about AI, just showing how quickly it can kind of help you do those tasks that you've been doing before. But I tell people all the time, it's still great to learn about web, app development, full stack. So anything that you can learn, because when you do get into those spaces where you are coding or you make your own apps or anything, it's best that you're able to understand what you're coding, or if you do need help, you're able to kind of like tell the developer what exactly is kind of happening. I'm also a founder, so I'm a founder of a tech company for kids, tech, finance, and actually design, where we kind of introduce them to these skills really early on so that by the time they are in their adulthood or searching for their career, they just have a better understanding of what they want to do, or just, being able to kind of help people in this field as well. So a little bit about this session. Oh, and then also like I've done these pictures I took like from my website, but I've done a few speaking engagements as well. So that also working in different workshops, sessions like CBF Fest that was in London, as far as Afrotech in Houston. I've done worked at colleges to kind of give presentations on like entrepreneurship and tying that into technology and kind of how we tie that into AI ethics. Also being responsible within AI, because again, a lot of times we do use AI not for the best way we should. So also that's really important to dive into that as well. So a little bit about today's session. So our goals for the session is basically how AI apps actually work without code. So again, we won't be coding in this session. We're just going to be prompting more so. How prompts act as the logic of your app. How to turn one app into a usable tool, and then how to design a simple AI powered app flow. Okay. And then who is the session for? Again, so if you're a non-technical creator, if you are an entrepreneur or a founder, if you're a student, a beginner, or if you're just curious about AI and app building and how it works and different tools that you can use to build these apps to kind of get in the feeling of like, how do I build this, or which tools should I be using? This is like the perfect session for you. So if I can get a yes or no in the chat, who overthinks decisions? So decision making, whether that's like what should I eat today? What time should I go to the gym? What class should I take? What should I major in? Should I change my career? If I could get some like yeses or nos in the chat of like who overthinks decisions. Yes, I see some thumbs. A hand raised. No one overthinks decisions. Anybody else? Maybe. Okay, I think we're overthinking right now to say yes or no. Okay, so I do. Okay, awesome. So, yes, so I believe that all of us have been in that space where we do overthink a lot of these decisions that we try to make, whether that's personal, whether that's career, different things like that. So, thinking about different decisions. So, when we think about these decisions that we have between products and brands, okay. And then we think about what decision have you overthought recently? So, have you overthought? I don't know if you guys can click on the screen. If you can, try it, but try to vote, but if you can't, that's fine. But usually it ties into career or work. So again, like, should we change careers? Do we want to get promoted? Should we speak up? What would be the best career field I should do? Is it too late to change my career? So we overthink a lot of things that usually keep us stuck, and that's kind of what this app is kind of helping with, just to get that unstuck. We also overthink money. Should we spend this? Should we save this? Where should we put this? Should we invest this? um Also learning something new. Should I learn this? Should I not? Time management, and then personal life plays a really big part in a lot of our decision making. So that's kind of how we tie in a lot of these things when we think about decisions. And the app that we're building, it'll just give us a better perspective. So usually when we think about AI and we think about the things we can ask AI, so even for this decision maker, we could literally just go to ChatGPT and be like, hey, I have this decision today, can you help me answer this? And it'll give you some random answer, right? The reason that we build these apps is to get people away from just using like the chat platform and actually using something that would be more effective and only focuses on that one thing. So it's like your results are usually better when you are working with something that focuses on that one thing. And we know that through like all these apps that are built, like we have Uber Eats or Lyft or anything, like even though a lot of these apps are doing like the same thing or doing the same thing a taxi does, what makes that app better than calling a taxi? It might be because now you can kind of communicate with this exact person. You can see how far they are, you can see how much you're paying. So there's different things that an app does, a single app does, that usually a whole platform that does everything can't do. Okay. So I'm going to skip this part, but I'm going to talk about this a little bit. So this would be thinking about what should our app do. So if you can kind of, if you look at this, the form that I sit in the chat. Hopefully everybody can access it. If you can't, please let me know. But if you do access it and you can't write on it, just make a copy of it. So you would go to file, make a copy, and then you can start to type on it and stuff. So thinking about what should this app do. So if you're thinking about a decision maker app, think about some things that you might think should be in this app. So I'm gonna actually not skip this part. And let me know if you can see my screen's changing. I'm on Figma now. Can we see the Figma? Can I get a thumbs up in the chat if we can see? Yeah, okay. So when we think about different things our apps should do in thinking about the idea of a decision maker or not a decision maker, can we give me one thing that we think an app should do when you go on an app, just thinking about apps in general? Like, what should an app have? Let me see if I can actually share this. I'm going to share this. If anyone wants to type on it, you probably can. But okay, I see settings. It should have settings. That's a good one. I see a login, so I'm going to put that. So settings, login. And then now, when we think about building an app and we think about using AI, you can also, if you want, you can make different boxes and type in the boxes as well. So if we think about settings, right, and we think about the settings of an app, what are some of the things that are within an app that has settings? Like, what are things that are in that settings tab? Again, if you could type there, you can, if you would like. So if we think about a settings tab, it might have maybe a login, like a login section where you could change your password. So I'm going to say password change, right? So when you're building out an app using AI, you also have to think about what does a real app have that I use every day that might be important to have in here, right? So that's kind of how this would work. You have to think about all those specific things because when you're building with AI and you try to build an application and you just say, oh, can you make me an app? Like Uber Eats or something, and it builds this app and then it doesn't have a settings tool. So now you have to understand everything that's in a settings tool and you say, hey, can you rebuild this with a settings tab that has where I can change my password, where I can log out, where I can do this. So you have to start to get specific when you're building these apps because most times if you're not, then you'll fall into the lane of it not building good the first time, and then when you try to go back in and switch it, you'll run into some bugs. And especially if you are vibe coding, that can be difficult for someone who has never coded before or is just having a hard time getting over those bugs here. So password change, anybody have anything else? Dark light mode. Okay, awesome. So that's another thing. Dark light mode. Also, when we think about, I'm going to make another one again. You should be able to type in here if you just click on it. But login, so login could be like a sign up, a forgot password, right? So thinking about all these things that a regular app has before even starting to build your app. So if you're in the process of like you have a business or you have this big app idea and you want to build an app, look at an app that's similar to something that you want to build already and then thinking about how you can expand on that. Like what am I missing or what does this app need before I start to build just the basics or the features of it. Okay? To navigate based on the purpose of the app. Okay. So I would say now two different sections, maybe. I think that's what you mean. So even thinking about a navigation part of it, so like the menu, and then ideally too, apps don't have to be so complex. So I don't know if you guys ever heard of the, I'm gonna chop the name up, but I think it's called the Podarium theory. It's something. Well, what it does is it's a counter app, and what it does is basically it helps you with your work habits. So I think it gives you like 20 minutes and you set that timer for 20 minutes and then you do 20 minutes of work. After that work time is over, you can take like a 15-minute break. After you take the 15-minute break, you set the timer again to maybe do some more work. And it reminds you to take breaks. And I think a lot of times when we're working on stuff and we're building stuff, we'll do it for 2 to 3 hours and then we come into this like drained or our creative juices aren't flowing as much and we get stuck and then we don't want to do it anymore and then we don't look at it again until like 5 days later. So with that app, it only just tracks the time or the timing that you should be using. So apps always don't have to be so complex where you have to sign in, you have to log out, you have to have all these features. You can build really simple things that are just helpful to people. Like how is what I'm building helping others? Yes, this is the name of it. Thank you. I'm like, what's the name? Let me see. Okay. I'm actually gonna see if I can find the app that I've used before. Okay, so this is the one, and just let me know if you can see me switching screens because I feel like I'm switching screens, but I don't know if I'm okay, I am. Okay, so this is what this would be. So again, this is really simple. Oh, it does have a sign in part, I guess if you want to track like the goals that you did. But you can set different tasks, and then with those tasks, you can be like, this could be so simple. Some people, I eat once a day, so you got to remind yourself to eat sometimes. So again, this is something that you can set up. You would start the timer, and once that's started, it would give you time to do that. Then it alerts you that that time is over. So again, when you're building these applications that you have in mind, just think of things that can help people. They don't always have to be so complex, but can this help someone in some type of way? Okay? And this is also something you can kind of duplicate with AI. So I'm gonna go back to these slides. Okay. So when we think about how apps actually work, we have an input section. So this is where we're inputting our information. We have the thinking part where the AI is thinking about whatever you input, and then we have an output. So this is where it outputs that information for you, and it lets you know, okay, so this is basically what you have based off of your input. So we're giving you an output based off your input and what we think you might want to see. So if you see that, and most of us, I believe here, have used ChatGPT before, ChatGPT before, we know that it goes through that process. Some applications are faster than others, and we'll actually see that difference. I'm going to use two platforms that you can build apps on that I enjoy using. And you'll see how one is kind of faster than the other just based off the thinking process or just based on what it can produce for you. Does anyone have any questions about anything so far? Okay. So now we're going to start with our building process. But before we get started, I'm actually going to go back to that worksheet just in case, wherever it is. Let me see. I know I have it in the chat somewhere. Okay. So if we look at this worksheet, and again, like if you can just kind of dive in, um, if you started like working on it, this part is just so that when you build the application, you can just put in the decision that you have. So something can be like, I, oh, I have to be able to edit it. I'm gonna make a copy. So file, make a copy. Okay, so what decision are you trying to make? So what I would want you to put here is I want you to start thinking of a decision, just something that you can easily just copy and paste once it's time to put it into the application. So you can say like, I'm gonna say something like simple, like I want to buy a new pair of shoes, but I like already have 50 pairs. And again, like this is stuff that you could just play around with. Of course, like when it comes to decision making, it would be more complex or something that would kind of really help you. But for this, I'm just like playing around with like what this question could be to see what they would say, even if it's something like just you can think on your own. But say I want to buy a pair of shoes, but I already have 50 pairs. Should I save my money or let's say, or should I sell ones I have? What do you think? But I want you to get a little more in deep thought with this question, thinking about something that has been a hard decision for you to make recently. Again, whether that's been career, money, personal life, or anything like that within school. Thinking about something that has been a hard decision for you to make and writing that question here so that you could put it into the prompt and see if it helps you. I want to see if the question that you've been lingering on actually is able to get answered with this application that we're about to build. Okay. And then again, what matters most, you can kind of just check off whatever that might be. You could put it in a different highlight color, um, or so on. Okay. So now what we're going to do, if we see here, this would be the prompt. So we're going to go to Chat GPT first before we go to the app building prompt, the app building tool. And we're going to say, you are a helpful decision making assistant. The user will provide a situation or a question, 2 to 4 possible options. Your job is to list a pro, either 3 to 4 pros, 3 to 4 cons, and then give one clear recommendation. The rules that I want you to follow is to be neutral and practical. Don't over explain. Use simple language. And then the format of this would be option 1 would be pros, cons. Option 2 would be pros, cons, and then a recommendation. So I'm going to copy this exactly how it is. I'm not going to change it or add anything. And I'm going to put this into ChatGPT and see how it interacts with this prompt here. Okay. And I'll also put this prompt in the chat just in case you want to kind of follow along and go to chat GPT with me and you can kind of put this in. Okay. So I'm going to go here. Okay, make sure you can see this screen. Okay. And then I'm going to come to this section here. Again, so I'm just on the regular chatgpt.com, just in case anybody has any questions. I'm going to link this in the chat as well. So this is the site that I'm currently on. Yeah. Then I'm going to paste this in here. Oh, I got to copy it again. Give me a second. Okay. And then I'm going to just let it work. Okay, so this is without the app building part, without the part of thinking about like the actual app and just thinking about it as like just a tool that you're speaking to. So it said, nice, this is clean, clearer. No, actually, it's picking up something else that I had. So not for a not for a workshop. Okay, so it was picking up something else that I was continuing on with. So I'm gonna actually I had to tell it it's not for a workshop. I want you to act as a daily help app for me. So it said, okay, switching modes. I'll act as a daily decision helper for you for now on. Here's how it works. You give me one situation or question and I'll give you 2 to 4 options. I'll respond exactly in the format of pros and cons, one clear recommendation, neutral, practical, no extra explanations. You can talk to me like an app. Go ahead. What's your decision? Okay. So now I'm going to take the decision that I had put inside of that worksheet. And then I'm going to come back to this here. Okay. And then I'm going to say what I said. I'm just going to copy and paste. Okay. Okay, and this is what it gave me. It says, so option one, buy a new pair of shoes. Pros, you get something new you enjoy, can update your style, replace it. You already have many shoes, cost money that could be saved. Option two can be to save money. So it gave me 2 options. So it said you can buy a new pair, but this is the pros and cons, or you could save your money, and this is the pros and cons um, of that if you save your money. And it gave me option three of selling some shoes you have. So it gave me pros of that and it gave me cons of that. And then a recommendation that it gave me, it said sell a few pairs you don't wear and use that money if you want new shoes. Okay, so this is how this kind of sets up. It puts in an input, it thinks about, I put in my input, it thinks about that, and it gives me an output of recommendations for that. So this is what it would look like to just have a plain back and forth with assistant of some sort. And then now what we would do is we would take this but put it into an application style. So now that we have an idea of how our app would work, how we get our inputs, our outputs, our recommendation, now we can think about the design of it. Like, what does this look like that we're building? Okay, does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions about that? No? Okay. Let me know if you have any questions or something you don't understand. Okay. So we just did that live testing. So that was what we just did. Now we can think about when you're working with the application, say you didn't like the options it gave you, say you didn't think it answered fast enough. Should it be faster? Is that a question? Like, should it answer these faster? Should it ask a follow-up question? Like, should it ask me another question after it gave me those recommendations? And should it rank options? Should it say this might be your best option? This is your second best. This is your third best. So also when you think about building your application out, thinking about things that might make it better. How can I make this better? How can I tweak this to make this application just something that would be more useful for the person using it? Okay. So that's also a thought. Once you've built something out, thinking about what can I do to make it better. Okay. So now when we think about the app overall, we're thinking about the app screen. So the screens that we're seeing, the screens that we're building out, um, really makes people either want to be on your app or not. So we think about the product of the design rather than the code. So how does this look before we think about how it functions as well? Because this is a really important part within your code as well. So we're gonna go to um, Behance. So Behance is kind of like a you can think of it like as a Pinterest for like apps and building and different things like that. Um, as you can see, it refreshed and it had two different like screens going on. But you can think of it as something just helping you come up with ideas. But also in Behance, you can hire people. So you can hire people to help you design. Again, I use this for like inspiration purposes. Also, you can post your designs on here. You can use this as like a portfolio page if you are looking for jobs or anything like that. So what I would usually do on here is if I'm building something, I would put that in here. So I would say like daily, I'm gonna say daily helper app. Usually sometimes they don't have every single thing that you're looking for, but sometimes they do. Also, when you think about the apps you're building, you don't have to necessarily use the design of that specific app, if that makes sense. Um, so say if I like, I'm gonna go back to something. Um, This is fun. So say if I like, okay. So this is something totally different. This looks like a festival or something. But say if I like the colors of this. This has nothing to do with a daily helper app, but I like these colors. So what I can do is screenshot, like I'll just screenshot this and I would put that what my screenshot into my app builder and I would say, hey, I really like these colors. Can you make my app the same colors that are in this screenshot? Okay. So usually it doesn't always have to be related to the app for you to use it to help build out your app. Okay. And then if we go back here, I actually really like this. I like the UI of this mood tracker thing, but it probably won't be as effective. Or maybe it could be. Um, But again, like if you were doing a mood tracker, that would be good to be like, can you follow this structure? But something else like this daily helper here, it's like, okay, can I take this? I would take a screenshot of this whole thing and I would say, can you replicate the UI design of this application here? Okay. Or can you create every screen? So I want this home screen to look like this. I want my second screen to look like this. I want this screen and I want that screen. So you can actually take a screenshot, put that into your application and make it that way. Okay. So let's kind of try, test it out. Let me see if there's a better, okay. So I'm going to go back here and before we do that, I'm going to show you the app that I build for the daily decision helper app. So this is really simple. I didn't add anything. I'll even show you my prompt for it because it was very simple. I didn't try to make it as fancy as what you see on the Behance apps, like to make it like really pretty. I just wanted it to function. So it wasn't that many different moving parts in it, but we'll take a look at what it looks like. And the platform that I use to build this on is called V0. So I'll also put that in the chat in case you want to look at it. So I don't know if anyone has ever heard of V0. or has used it before? Can I get a yes or no if anyone has used it before? If you have used V0? No? Okay. Okay. So V0 is not as I have used Lovable. Okay, awesome. So see, like V0 doesn't get as much PR as like Lovable, or I know some of us probably heard of Base 44. Another one is I think the Anything app. Those apps are usually what happens with those two, they usually take more time to develop certain things. So say if you want something quick and you just want to see something, apps like Lovable or Base 44, they take more time. But what I will say is that their user interface is better. So they build better user interfaces without you having to tell it how to look. So that's one thing. But Base V0 actually builds it like really quick. So you don't have to do too much. So if we can see here, it says, can you create a simple app that is a daily decision helper? It lets you ask a question and AI gives you pros, cons, and recommendations. That's all I said. I didn't say anything else. I didn't ask for anything else. I just made that simple prompt and then it was able to build what you see here from that simple prompt. So what I'm gonna do as well is I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna take what I had for that um, my worksheet actually. And I'm going to put the same question I asked ChatGPT into this, and we're just going to see the difference of what it gives me back. So, so again, daily decision helper, AI powered decisions, pros and cons recommendation. What decision are you trying to make today? And then I would analyze that decision. It's going to take a few seconds. Also, a lot of times with these applications, when I first was trying this out, I thought it didn't work because it took so long to give me a recommendation. But also just understanding, like if you saw when we talk about prompt tweets, like can it do this faster? Can it make these questions, these answer these questions faster? So now as you can see, it gave me some pros of it. So selling underused shoes can raise money, clearing your shoes you never wear, whatever. This can create free physical space, cleaning, so on. Then it gave me some cons. You may not recover much value when selling, emotional or collector attachment. Selling, donating requires cleaning, shipping. So it gives me all these cons of what it would take for that. And then it gave me a recommendation. So it said, do a quick audit first, identify shoes you haven't worn in 12 plus months, duplicate ones. This is a really good recommendation. Duplicates or ones in poor condition, sell or donate, raise money, so on and so on. Talk about impulsive buying. So it gave a really good recommendation and pros and cons. The difference between this and chat gpt is that chat gpt gave me options, but as you can see here, I didn't ask when I put in this prompt, I didn't ask for it to do option one, option two, if I sell, if I keep, if I buy new ones. So it's just giving me a basic pros overall and a basic con overall. So usually with V0, you would have to use like third-party APIs. So it doesn't because with V0, it's mainly like I would say it's like a low coding app. Like it's able to build, but you would have to have a lot of like third party sources in it, opposed to like I know like with Lovable, like I know you can connect it with like Shopify and you could build an app in Lovable and then integrate it into Shopify. With V0, you can't do it to that extent. Like you would have to actually like bring in like a lot of third party sources. So that's why V0 is probably not as popular because they're still building out where they're able to kind of have like pull their own like APIs and different things. Um, and then if we look again at the code is pretty, we're gonna skip that package part. But as far as like let me see. the layout part. So this would be like kind of like if we think about like our HTML part of things, you have this label section, you have this text area. So again, if we know in coding, you have a text area where you can type in text. It gave it an ID of question. You can see that it has this placeholder here. So it's the same thing, like especially if you learned code before, it's the same exact elements that are in the coding aspect. So it's, if you're able to change things, you would be able to edit this. You could change it. I know some, like say if I save the change, it would be able to update that change. I know some applications, in order to edit the code, you have to pay for it. And that's another thing with V0. You can get a free version where you're able to edit the code and stuff without having to pay for a version. Um, and then again, you have some CSS here. This is more of a global CSS, so it probably doesn't look like the CSS that you learn right away, depending on what coding classes you've taken. But yeah, so this would be the basic of that. So what I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna add some design to it. So I would add the pros and cons, but since we're gonna build this out on another application, I'm not gonna add the options part that we saw in on ChatGPT. So I'm just gonna put in, let's see if I could. I'm gonna upload. So remember that screenshot I took of the colors of that thing for that festival? I'm gonna upload that and I'm just gonna say, hey, can you edit my app to include these colors? Yeah, can you edit my app to include these colors? I'm just gonna keep it simple so I don't break anything, because I didn't test this out beforehand. So it's gonna kind of run through that. Um, and again, this doesn't take much time. This might seem um, like it's taking some time, but it's really not taking that much time compared to other applications that I've like played around with. Okay, so mainly the main thing that's updating, as you can see, it's telling you exactly what it's doing as well. So it's updating my CSS, so the global CSS. So what it would have to do in order to add those colors is change my CSS, the colors that's in my CSS. Okay, and for anyone who doesn't know what CSS is, it's just cascading style sheets. So basically, the makes your app pretty in some type of way. Different colors you can do, different animations you can do with it. Okay, this is actually taking longer than I would have expected it to, but so we're just gonna wait a few seconds. Okay, so it said it changed it. As we can see, I would have hoped for it to change like the background color or something like that, but it didn't do that. So let's see what it did with the pros and cons section. So usually sometimes what you also have to do is kind of be more specific. So if I wanted it to change the background, I wouldn't say it did exactly what I was hoping. Like the colors aren't as vibrant, but you can see it changed this to like an orange. The red is not as bright. The green is more of a mellow tone. But when you're doing this, you also have to be like really specific sometimes. Sometimes you can be like Laxy Daisy, like, oh, can you just edit this? But what I would have to probably do is like, hey, can you change the background to be the color that you see here that is red? Can you make this have animations in the background? Can you do this? So like sometimes you have to be more specific than others, and sometimes you don't have to be specific, and it can kind of edit that. Okay, so it did change the colors, it just didn't do them as vibrant as I would have hoped it to be. Okay, but again, if you read through here, it kind of tells you exactly what it tried to do, what it updated. You see it says a golden yellow accent, um, festival color palette. Yeah. Okay. So now what we're gonna do um, is we're gonna again think about the decision. So hopefully we wrote a decision that you would need to help making this week, or a decision that's been lingering. And now we're gonna see what it's like to kind of build that from scratch using another AI tool platform. So this is one I already built in V0. Now I'm gonna go to base 44. So I'm gonna link this as well in the chat. And then this is where we can also, you can follow along with me, and we're gonna put the same prompt. So you'll be able to see the differences. We'll put the same prompt that I use for V0. And I'm gonna put this prompt into base 44, and I'll put this prompt here as well. And then what I'm gonna say, so to make this a little different, what I'll say is based on, I'm gonna go back to my ChatGPT and just pull let's see. Okay. So the same thing I put into ChatGPT, I'm going to put into here as well. So I said the user will provide a situation or question, and then 2 to 4 possible options. Your task is to list this, so on, give clear recommendation, give pros and cons, and so on. So this is the only different thing that I added to this application that I didn't have in the other one. So let's see how this works. So I'll put what the other extra part that I put in chat again. So again, if you want to start to dive deeper into it, I would say start inspecting the code, see what you can do, see what you can edit inside the code. I don't know if base 44, I never tried to change the code in base 44, but I think for Lovable, you might have to pay to edit the code. For V0, like the first few credits you have, you don't have to pay. So again, if you want to just play around with editing the code to see what you can change or what you might want to add, especially if you never coded before, I think it's really like interesting to kind of see that update. So while we wait for that, I'm gonna actually change like something simple in the code. So if we go back to the UI, and I'm gonna change the placeholder. Let's see. So I'm gonna just say anything you have in mind. Okay, and then I would save these changes. And then if I go back here and I refresh this, now you can see my placeholder says anything you have in mind. Okay, so you could directly edit the code from there. So again, if I wanted to change the CSS to be more vibrant colors, I can select colors. I can go to a color picker to match those exact colors that I saw. So if I need the hex code or something, I can get those exact colors with the hex code, and I could go in and I can change it. So many different things that you can kind of do to make your app more personal. Okay, so here we are. So as you can see, the UI is a bit different than the UI here. So what it did differently, it gave me a icon as well. So it kind of gives you what decision maker with base 44, what they do as well is they'll give you like a app logo, like an app icon, so that you can kind of get your own like idea. So as you can see, like it made me a whole icon for my logo. It gave me a name for it, decision navigator. It gave me a description of it. As you can see, it says share app. You can open app, you can again, so this integration into the app store is a little probably easier than V0. Like V0 doesn't have all these integrations where you can automatically like get it into the app store or anything like that. Okay, so I'm gonna again take the same question just to make it easy. I'm gonna take the same question that I asked before. And paste it here. Your options. Also, now it's asking me for my options. Sell it. Um, buy new shoes. So I guess it's asking me two options that I have within that. And let's see what happens. Again, does anyone have any questions about this? Have we used base 44 before? I know some of us have used Lovable. Has anybody ever used base 44? Lovable has actually a really good user interface. Like you don't have to say much for it to create like something like nice. So that's what I like about Lovable. But Lovable also takes quite of a long time and can crash if you give it too much complex information. Input position and power. So this is taking a little longer to analyze. So let's see if it runs into a bug. The thing I also like about base 44 when you're building, um, if it does run into a bug or something breaks, it automatically is able to fix its bug. Like you just have to click a button. Usually with some applications when you're building with AI, what would happen is um, it'll have a bug, but you have to tell it to fix that bug. Like V0, you have to tell it what bug to fix sometimes. Even though it knows it has a bug, it usually just doesn't know where to fix it. So it's still waiting. So again, if anybody has tried this on their end, let me know if it's working for you, if it's analyzing it. Again, you could probably re-edit it and say, can you answer this faster? Since we are kind of at time, I'm going to come back to it and just kind of wrap up that last part. So, again, so thinking about a decision you had, basically what we went over is just prompts equaling logic. We also went over apps start with clarity. So again, giving it those clear instructions. And then if your app is crashing or again, moving as slow as it is to analyze this question, thinking about feedback that improve your products. Like, can you answer this in like 3 seconds instead of taking 1 to 2 minutes to kind of come up with that? Um, and as you can see, I don't know if it's moving at the same speed or slower than V0 when it's kind of trying to analyze this part here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually refresh it and try again. Okay. So I'm going to say sell shoes, buy new pair. Okay, so I guess it just needed to be refreshed. Okay, so and again, you see the user interface I think is better than V0, but V0 can also create the same interface. You would just have to be more specific, like, hey, I want you to have two sections of this. But the difference with like base 44, they already have like a built-in option of how they create, I guess, their UI, so you don't have to tell it too much. But base 44, I mean, V0 can create the same thing. You would just have to be more specific. So as you can see, it gave me option one to sell the shoes. These are the pros of selling the shoes. These are the cons of selling the shoes. These are the pros of buying a new pair. It didn't give me any con. Oh, did it? Okay, it gave me some cons down here. So again, this is, I guess I needed an option three. Like I had to put in an option three. Again, this is something that would be a bug. Like how do we fix this? Where it doesn't automatically do an option three. So I'll put my cons down here for the option two. And then it gave me the recommendation of consider selling some shoes you don't want to wear, much to make space and funds for a new pair. Okay, and then you could go into making it, and it says start a new decision, and then you could just refresh this by starting a new decision rather than having to kind of refresh the whole page. So as you can see, the recommendation is good, but if we think about the recommendation, I'm mad that it went away. But we think about the recommendation that V0 gave us. The recommendation was way more detailed and actually like made me think like, hey, this is actually a good good information. So also when you are building with these applications, you can also go back and forth to other apps. So Lovable, Base 44, V0. I think the other one's called Anything Everywhere, which I haven't used just yet, but I've seen that it does good things. You can also try to kind of integrate which one is giving you better outputs as well, to kind of help you understand, like, okay, this gives better outputs, but this has a better user interface. This gives better outputs, but this one is faster. So how do I kind of integrate the two? And then this part, this structure part where it kind of tells you everything it's doing, this would really help also. So if you see something in here that talked about like the way it analyzed the recommendation, or how it thought about giving a detailed recommendation, you can also say, hey, give a more detailed recommendation like this application here. Okay, so you can compare and contrast. I always say like do different things and not just stick into one, because sometimes you'll get better results on one or the other. Okay, and then, okay, awesome. I see in the chat. So it did work. It worked for you on the first try, I'm assuming. So renew, just continue. Oh, and it didn't give you a third part. Okay, so again, that could probably be something um, with my application. This looks good. Okay, perfect. So yeah, so that would be creating a decision daily helper app using AI without thinking about the code, just more so logical prompting. So the main focus is how do I think about this logically? How do I think about a prompting? So you didn't even go into diving into like the UI. How do I really build out this big application? And I'll also, if you, we have like I think two more sessions. So also I'll show you different things that I built when I kind of went more in depth, where I actually went into building more information, asking it like, can I have a login screen? Can you implement this with an API and different things like that? Okay. And if you have any questions for me, just let me know as well. Um, but thinking about it again, if you explain your thinking clearly, AI can build almost anything. So anything that you want, anything that you think of, I've dived into character creation with AI. I've dived into making like animations, making videos for YouTube for animation. So many different things that you can do. You just have to also just be clear on your thoughts and kind of really what you want before just sometimes just throwing things into a prompting situation. Okay. So when you say ideas, do you mean ideas about like what apps to build more so?
Yes, what apps to build? Like, how do you know what you want to do? Because I feel like you get overwhelmed.
Hmm. I think it's mainly what I tend to do, or what I think is super helpful, is sometimes you can go to like the web. So just go to the internet, not ChatGPT, go to the internet and look up like what apps were trending in 2025, or what apps are trending in 2026, or what apps will be trending in the next 5 to 10 years. And then they'll give you so if you're in the stage of like you want to just build something rather than you want to create like this business, but you want to just build something like people can use, that's when you would go into that type of prompting, on actually like a Google search, and then you read through those and you see what people like. Then you'll go to like the app store and see how many ratings this specific app is getting, and then you start to build from there what you think resonates with you the most and what you think can help people the most. Like, okay, this is an application that can help somebody the most, and this is what I might enjoy doing the most as well, or building, or being able to talk about, or anything like that, and then building from there. So that's kind of like, if you don't already have an idea set in stone, you would kind of search to see what's already working and build on that as well. Because again, the world is so big, and as long as your community that you have is enough to sustain whatever you're trying to create, that's all you need, as long as it's consistent. Like, you don't need everybody in the world to be using your app. You just need the few people that you might need, and kind of grow from there. I hope that answers your question.
That's like part two, sorry. For when you say community, you mean like your LinkedIn community or like,
Any when community can just be anyone that you meet, anyone that sees your product. Community doesn't have to be like people that follow you. Community could just be um people that even if somebody is following you and they talk to somebody else about you, and then that person follows you or that person looks at your page, that automatically becomes your community. So anybody that's seen you one time becomes your community in some type of way.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And then I have a few. What would be the best next step for you to take after today to keep improving your first app? Um, I would say the best strategy is to focus on, probably, say if you are building a specific app and there's an app that you want to, like, you have an app idea. Say you have an idea and you're like, okay, how can I improve on this app building skills or anything? What I would say is definitely learning some full stack or React Native if you don't already. That's one thing. So watching like YouTube videos on that, to understand the coding part of it. If you're not interested in, like, I wouldn't say you have to learn the coding part, but if you want to understand the coding part, it's still just as important. And then over time you can kind of work with a developer once you've prototyped your app and stuff. But I would say just coming up with like ideas of like designing, so playing around with a lot of stuff. So how, like, can you get something to match exactly how you want it to match or how to look exactly like this? And I would say that would be one way to improve. How can beginners turn projects like this to AI app into something portfolio ready? So anything can honestly be portfolio ready. Anything that you build can be portfolio ready as long as it's something that people can click on and look at. So a portfolio ready application doesn't have to be an application that's in the app store. It doesn't have to be an app that people are using. The main thing when it comes to portfolio things that you're building, you have to be able to build something and explain exactly what it's doing and how it's helpful. So say if we did something like the daily decision helper app, and you added some tweaks to it, you made some different things, you let people log in and sign in, they can save their options. So they now, like, when I went to back to V0, I couldn't see what I did previously because it's erased. But if I was able to sign in, I would be able to click again and see that recommendation that it gave me again. So kind of adding more advanced features to it. And then when you have it in your portfolio, now you can explain, like, these are the features that I added to make it better. This is why this is better than this, or so on. So kind of comparing it. And then also what I usually do when I'm building an app, or when I'm building apps out, I'll find an app similar on the App Store and I'll download that app and I'll go through the app. So I'll actually use the app as a user and see what I like about it, see what I didn't. If I didn't like that one, I'll download another similar one, go through that one and do that again and do that process until I can make it exactly how I want that app to be similar to the app that I'm using. And if you were starting over today, what would you focus on first when learning how to build? Okay, so kind of going back to that first question again, I would say learning what the process is, and then going into just playing around with the AI tool, seeing what AI tool you like the best, seeing which one gives you the best results, seeing which one moves faster for you. Again, I use a lot of the free versions. Sometimes if I need something like specific, I'll use a paid version. But for most applications that I use when I'm building out, I'll use like a free version of that application. I actually, let me see if I can show you guys one more thing before we head out. Um, on base 44, I've built some like other stuff. Like for instance, I built like this piano application, but this is kind of really simple because it doesn't show you the whole keyboard. But I've been like learning to play piano, so I was like, let me just see if I make like an application for it. um and then if you can see, it shows you the keys, but it lets you know, like, say if I wanted to start it, like what keys to play this specific song. But even though this doesn't resemble like a whole keyboard, how would I edit this? I would say, can you resemble an actual keyboard that I would be using to play this song? Because if I pull up, keyboard, I might be able to still duplicate this like on a real keyboard, but it still would be harder for me to learn if it's my first time learning. And what I did with this as well, as you can see, I showed it this picture, if we can see here in the corner, and I wanted it to resemble this user interface, and this was the best it could do to, resemble what this user interface was. Okay, so again, you just have to keep trying new things because you're always not going to get the exact thing that you want on those first tries. Okay, and then here it lets me pick different songs to play and so on. Um, and this is with one prompt. Like I didn't edit it after that. That was just my one prompt. Then it did make an error here, as you can see, and then it was able to fix that error. I think I wasn't able to kind of see the piano to any questions. But thank you all so much for sticking around. This link right here is my LinkedIn, so you can follow me on LinkedIn. Or you can join my Discord channel where I post like daily apps that I'm working on. I'll also link in some in the next couple of weeks. Again, to answer some of those questions like how do I start building, where do I start building, and different things to kind of help you all start that journey if that's something that you want to kind of start building with applications or learning about like more of the coding part of things. I'll help you kind of just identify where you should start learning and what's the best thing to learn so you don't overwhelm yourself with the learning process as well. Because within coding, you also need to be learning about AI as well. So, again, this is the Discord channel and this is my LinkedIn. Again, if you have any other questions, please do let me know. And thank you all for joining.